Have you ever wondered how ancient humans survived when it didn't rain for days, weeks, or even longer? Today, getting water is probably one of the easiest things in our lives. You feel thirsty, turn on the tap, and water is right there. If the water in your house starts running low, you can store it in a tank. Need a bottle of water? You can simply buy one. And if an area experiences a water shortage, water can be transported from somewhere else. But now imagine that. All of these conveniences suddenly disappeared from your life. No tap, no water tank, no bottled water, no shop where you could simply buy water. And worst of all, the sky doesn't produce a single drop of rain for weeks. How long would we actually survive? Probably not very long. Because a lack of water doesn't just make us thirsty. It affects everything. Plants begin to die. Animals start moving toward other areas in search of water. Food becomes harder to find. And if water completely disappears, life itself is eventually put at risk. Now take that same question thousands of years into the past. Ancient humans didn't have the water systems we depend on today. No household taps, no water tanks, no plastic bottles, no easy way to order water from somewhere else. And they had no reliable way of knowing exactly when the next rain would arrive. Yet they survived. They raised families. They hunted. They traveled from one place to another, and they lived in environments where water wasn't always easy to find. So what exactly did they do? When it didn't rain, where did ancient humans get their water? Where did they go when their local water source began disappearing? And if animals were also moving in search of water, how did ancient humans find them? Could animal tracks lead them toward water? Could certain plants reveal that moisture was hidden beneath the ground? And when rain finally arrived, did ancient humans simply let that water disappear? Or did they have ways to save it for the days when the sky became dry again? These are the questions we'll answer, one by one, because ancient humans didn't simply sit around waiting for rain. They learned to read their environment. They understood that water wasn't found only in rivers and lakes. Sometimes it was hidden underground. Sometimes it appeared as a spring. Sometimes it could remain beneath the bed of a dry river. And sometimes, the only clue that water was nearby came from plants or animals. Imagine standing thousands of years ago in a dry landscape. The sun is burning overhead. The ground is hot. Most of the grass has turned brown. And there isn't a river anywhere in sight. You have no GPS, no map, no phone. But the landscape around you is giving you clues. You notice animal tracks in the dirt. If tracks from different animals repeatedly lead in the same direction, that could be an important sign. Because during a dry season, animals cannot survive without water either. They have to move toward reliable water sources. So, an experienced human could watch their movements and make an educated guess about where water might be. But animals weren't the only clues. Plants could reveal something too. Imagine crossing a landscape where almost everything has turned dry and yellow. Then suddenly, you notice a small area where the plants are much greener than everything around them. A modern person might simply walk past, but an experienced ancient human could ask, why is there more life here than everywhere else? Plants need water to survive, so perhaps moisture was trapped beneath the ground. Perhaps groundwater was closer to the surface. Or perhaps rainwater collected there and remained for longer than it did elsewhere. Valleys, rocks, and natural depressions could also be important because rainwater can collect in certain places and remain there longer. But one of the greatest tools ancient humans had wasn't just their eyes. It was memory. An older member of a group might know that there was a spring beyond a particular hill. A hunter might know where animals traveled during the dry season. A traveler might return with knowledge of a place where water had been found. And that information could be passed from one generation to another. A landscape could become almost like a mental map. A person might remember where the valleys were, where animals gathered, where plants stayed green, and where water could be found. But suppose they actually found the water. Now another problem appeared. How could they take that water back to their group? Finding water was one challenge. Carrying and storing it was another. Humans eventually developed ways to transport and store water using natural materials, including animal skins, gourds, and later pottery containers. Now, the water source didn't have to be directly beside the place where people lived. They could travel to it, collect water, and carry it back. But there was still another problem. What happened when the rain didn't return for days or weeks? This is where collecting rainwater became important. When rain did arrive, water could be captured in natural depressions, spaces between rocks, and containers used for storage. Over time, humans developed more organized ways of keeping water available. They dug wells. They created storage containers. And some societies eventually developed channels and irrigation systems to move water from one place to another. The question slowly changed. At first, the question was, where is the water? Then it became, how can we keep the water we find? And eventually, how can we bring water to the places where we need it? That was a major turning point in human history. Because water wasn't only needed for drinking. Water meant crops. Crops meant food. And food meant that larger groups of people could survive in one place. That's one reason many early civilizations developed around major rivers. The Nile, the Tigris and Euphrates, the Indus, and the Yellow River. These rivers didn't simply provide drinking water. They supported agriculture, food production, transportation, and growing human settlements. But there's something important to remember. Ancient humans never completely controlled nature. Droughts could still happen. Water sources could still disappear. Crops could still fail. And animals could still move to other areas. When that happened, humans sometimes had one final solution. Move. If the water disappeared here, search somewhere else. If the animals moved, follow them. If the environment could no longer support life, leave and find another place. Perhaps this was one of the greatest strengths of ancient humans. They couldn't always change the environment to suit themselves, but they could change themselves to survive in the environment. And that ability helped humans survive in places where rainfall was low, seasonal, or unpredictable. Today, getting water can be as simple as turning on a tap. For ancient humans, reaching water could mean an entire journey. Sometimes that journey led to a river, sometimes to a spring, sometimes to a well, and sometimes it began with nothing more than a small clue in the landscape. So the next time you turn on a tap and water immediately appears, take a moment to think about the people who didn't have that convenience. They didn't simply sit and wait for rain. They watched, they remembered, they searched, they collected water, and when necessary, they moved. Ancient humans didn't survive by depending entirely on rain. They learned something far more important. A dry landscape doesn't always mean there is no water. Sometimes the water is right in front of you. Sometimes it's beneath your feet. And sometimes